roads that lead to conclusions. May we combine clarity of mind with kindness of heart, and may we be impartial without bending to strong personalities. May we sacrifice self-interest for the good of the whole. May we do our work with love and clarity of vision for the benefit of those we represent.
Thank you.
Please be seated. Okay, before I call the meeting to order, I'd just like to express congratulations to our new member of the Legislative Assembly, Sonia Furstenau, who was elected in the May 9th BC election. And I'd also like to congratulate all the other candidates for the other parties and the independents who ran in the election. It gave us a good choice, and our electorate has spoken. So I did send off a very brief congratulation note to Ms. Furstenau, and I would be looking maybe later in the agenda that we write letters to all the candidates thanking them for their contribution in stepping forward for the election. So I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we have one late item, item 2.1. This is an application for temporary change to liquor license for Just Take Restaurant, and that will be under reports of staff at item 5.5 for your information. And so a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Second. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. So just an expediency, and I know that we have some councillors that would like to make this meeting brief so they can get to some family commitments. So we have actually 7 sets of agendas, or minutes, I should say, for approval. So we'll do them omnibus, and I'll just give you the dates, significant dates of them. We have 5 minutes of special council meetings for April 6th, 10th, 18th, 24th, and May 1st, and regular minutes for April 18th, and committee of the whole minutes for May 1st. So a motion to adopt. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on any of those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. And Ms. Robertson, that works all right for you? Thank you. So we move on to reports of staff, item 5.1, which is a facilities condition assessment and project award. And the motion is that council award McQuaig and Associates Engineering Limited the contract to do the facilities conditions assessment as described in the request for proposal for the price of $46,845.75, including tax. And is there a mover for that motion? Moved. Seconder? Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Pitts, would you like to speak to the specifics?
Through your worship, as part of the 2017 capital budget, we allocated $80,000 for the to undertake a facilities condition assessment. So it'll essentially provide us with a 10-year capital plan for all of our facilities, give us condition analysis of all the building components and parts, an accessibility review, a very light seismic review, so non-structural seismic review, and it will address opportunities for energy savings.
Great, thank you. Any questions, Mr. Pitts? I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. So we have item 5.2, which is the 39 Days of July Summer Festival and Grand Parade, June 30th to August 7th. And there's a very, very long motion. I won't go into all the detail here, I don't think. So is there a mover for that motion? It's with respect to street closures and all the regular annual activities. Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussions of staff with what you see in the recommendation, which is 2 pages long? Councillor Duncan.
Just through you to Public Works, the parade day, we usually have to empty the garbage cans at least a couple of times.
Okay. Note to self. Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we move to item 5.3, which is the Couch and Sportsplex annual grant request. And a motion here that council approve a one-time special grant of $25,000 to the Couch and Sportsplex for track and field surface upgrades and replacement of the artificial turf surface in preparation for the 2018 BC Summer Games. And the council directs staff to prepare a financial plan bylaw amendment to include this grant with funds to come from Police Bridging Capital Fund. Moved, seconder. Okay. Any discussion on this? Councillor Duncan?
Can I get some breakdown on the funds, how we're going to for it? Because at the last meeting, I'd asked whether we would have some sort of financial information on where we are with regards to our costs for the park issue. You know, where are we going to get money for this? I see we've identified it from the police bridging fund, but
It's actually in the report, but I'll ask Ms. Sildera to go through the details.
But I'm concerned about the fact that we haven't finished paying for one thing and we're putting out a big chunk of money here.
So thus far, we do not yet have all of the bills in with respect to the costs of cleanup at Charles Hoey. To date, when the report was written, staffing costs total about $14,798. That includes our staff as well as additional security staff that we had to hire. Obviously, we have not yet finished replacing the grass, so we are still tracking those costs. Legal costs received to this time also total $25,000. We have received a few more legal bills with respect to that now as well. When all of the final costs are in, I will bring forward a report to council and ask for a financial plan amendment. As noted in this report, we do have two funds set aside for police bridging capital, for police bridging for the future. One of them is an operating reserve that staff would recommend using those funds to help pay to offset the cost of the tent city, as opposed to the police bridging capital fund.
Okay, I think that answers your question. Okay, any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Duncan opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So we move to item 5.4. This is the 2017 Sunfest Bowl 32, June 16th, 18th for a beer garden request. This is, again, another regular annual request. And the motion with all the conditions is on your agenda. Is there a mover? Moved. Seconder. Okay. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. So we moved. This is the late item that was added to the agenda. This is item 5.5, application for temporary change to a liquor license for Just Jake's Restaurant. And the motion is before you. At this point, I'm going to actually declare conflict because I am very close friends of the family, and in this case, it's with respect to a celebration for life. So, and the deputy mayor right now, I believe, is Councillor Duncan.
Okay. Are there any questions on the application? Thank you. Seconder? Okay. I don't see anything new here. This just looks like they didn't get their paperwork in on time. Is that right? Nothing new. It's with this is the same as usual. Right up the street.
It's not the same as usual. This is a
one-day thing, or?
Is this working out? Yeah, this is for a celebration of life due to a death in the family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a special circumstance. So although it's very similar to what they would be doing for the 39 days of July, it is for a private celebration of life.
Okay. Any questions? Go ahead.
Is there a reason that wasn't in the request? Is it just not politically correct to put it in celebrating somebody's life? Just a question. It doesn't make any difference.
This is, sorry, this just came in to us late, so we just quickly pulled the report together to add on the agenda, so I apologize if we missed that. I'm not sure if we had an attachment on it. It's in the report. It just didn't do the actual recommendation. Okay, so it is in the attachment.
Seeing no other hands, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Guess we can ask the mayor to come back.
Okay, so we move to item 6.1, which are reports of committees. We've got the May 1st Committee of the Whole recommendations, and Councillor Duncan, would you like to read out the two recommendations to Council? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. That Council approve the amended operating reserve fund policy as attached to the May 1st, 2017 report of the Director of Finance.
Okay, is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
6.1.2, that Council approve the retiring employees policy as attached to the May 1st, 2017 report of the Director of Finance, and that Council repeal the retiring employees council policy, and that Council repeal the retiring employees use of holiday entitlement council policy.
Seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? Councillor Jackson?
This is complex enough that I think it should be explained to anybody who's watching. If somebody could kindly do that.
Ms. Saldera, would you like to do that? Thank you.
So essentially, this takes what's been in place in several different policies throughout the city and puts them all into one policy. It clarifies and defines what makes a retiring employee and provides some information for staff certainty for both payroll staff and retiring staff to know that their benefits will carry over until their retirement kicks in, until their pension plan kicks in, and defines what it means to be a retiring employee.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we move to the item 6.2, which is the April 11th, 2017 Utility Board's meeting minutes and recommendations. And I believe there's a couple recommendations here. And Councillor Horgan, you're the chair of the Joint Utilities Board. Would you like to read those recommendations?
Certainly.
Make sure your microphone's on so you can be heard on the record.
Just at the right page.
They're just on the front agenda page, so
Yeah.
just what his recommendations are there.
Do you want me to read the whole page?
Just the item 6.2.1 and 6.2.2 and 6.2.3 and 6.2.4 and 6.2.5.
So you want me to read the whole page?
Yeah, because we have to actually agree to all, each of those items we have to actually pass a motion for.
Okay, you need the page number on the bottom as well, are we okay with that?
No?
That Council received the Joint Utilities Board April 11th, 2017 minutes for information.
Second that.
Moved, seconded, thank you. Discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you.
Request for temporary sewage lagoon feedstock access. The Council approve Boydell Wastewater Technologies, Inc. requests to access the Joint Utilities Board lagoons to conduct treatment of 300 millilitres?
Square meters.
Square meters of raw sewage feedstock for a 90-day period as outlined in its March 27, 2017 proposal, if feasible.
Okay, is there a seconder for that?
Second.
Okay.
Does
Any
anybody need an
discussion,
explanation?
questions? Yeah, Councillor Jackson?
Yes, I don't understand what sewage feedstock is. It's frightening me.
They want to borrow some of our sewage.
Yeah, they're going to give it back to us. It's the company, shall I explain?
Sure.
The company that's asking is a local company. They're putting together a small treatment plant that they're selling in Vietnam, actually. There's about 15 of these units they're selling into Vietnam. and they want to try it out here first to see if it works, I guess, is the truth. And they've asked permission to take some of our sewage and treat it, and then we're going to put it back into the lagoon clean. But they needed somewhere to go try it, and this was the closest. These units are being built and made by Promac here in Duncan, so it's a local effort, and we didn't have any trouble allowing them to do that because it seemed like a really good idea. In fact, in my mind, it wouldn't be a bad idea for us to look at that, but it's a pretty good process if it works properly, and it looks like it does.
Well, these kinds of studies will be proof concept.
Yeah.
They've been around for some time, and some municipalities have tried them. So that's a whole nother area to deal with. But certainly, this is a good thing for this local company to test the proof concept. There were changes they'd made in the process, so they want to prove that concept out. Okay. So, any other discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Yeah, one question.
Oh, hang on. Sorry.
Well, it's not really a question, it's just a comment, because I went to that meeting, they sent the email to the wrong Michelle, so I went and sat for 2 hours of the sewer. It was actually really interesting, but the question came up, why Vietnam and not here? And it's just because of our regulations. So they just go to where the money is, where the regulations are less stringent. So that's why they're trying it out there and not here.
Yeah, it's a dictatorship in Vietnam. All they have to do is convince the boss, and he says, yeah, go ahead and do it. It doesn't work that easily here.
Many try.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
And 6.2.3, governance, JUB governance review. That council direct Couch and staff to include $20,000 in the Joint Utilities Board budget and issue a request for proposals to undertake a governance study based on the following terms of reference. Identify suitable potential governance models to replace the Joint Utilities Board, including the models of wholly owned corporation and commission. Provide a report comparing and contrasting the advantages and disadvantages of each governance model. Participate in a discussion session with the stakeholders to consider the various options and identify requirements for legal structure and insurance availability of each governance model.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Thank you. Any discussion on this one? Questions? Councillor Duncan?
So this is just the receive and file information on this one because it's North Couch's money?
No,
No, it's
the JU. This is to include it in the budget for the RFP to go out for the study. This has actually been on the JUB's table for a couple of years, actually, and it had just not been executed. And this is the actual execution of that study.
Okay, so I'm still confused. This motion's directing North Couch and staff to include $20,000.
Well,
why are we voting on it?
Both councils have to agree to it because of the structure of the Joint Utility Board.
Okay.
So this is our half of the.
You could increase the amount and get some more money out of North Couch.
Well, we would pay our portion of that. So was there a seconder? I believe there was. Okay. Any discussion? Further discussion or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
6.2.4, temporary storage of biosolids. The council approved the Joint Utilities Board decision to deposit biosolids at the JUB Lagoons site from the Chemainus and Crofton wastewater treatment plants for a 6-month period, subject to the receipt of an appropriate fee.
Yeah.
Second?
Okay, a seconder. So do you want to explain this one, John? Or?
Yeah, I can. To the best of my knowledge and my memory working properly, Chemainus and Crofton wastewater have run out of space to dump their solids, and they're looking to give it to us for 6 months until they can find a more appropriate end for this stuff. Is that about it?
I think that's about.
And they're looking to pay for it. It's about a truckload a week that comes out of there. So,
Yeah, and it's the end product of their treatment.
yeah, it's
Process?
It's not.
So it's not raw sewage.
It's not.
It's a very concentrated biosolid. It's maybe Mr. Pitts could explain it more clearly, just to be clear. I think we put they wanted it open-ended at the first point. We did put a limit on the time, and then the discussion with respect to the fee, this appropriate fee which they're speaking of here, was with respect to making sure that it covered the cost of remediation, because ultimately the JEB has to remove biosolids from its system as well, and that remediation would have to be part of the cost based on weight or whatever it is that they're delivering.
But they also did say that they may have an alternative in place before they need to do this.
They might have, yeah. Mr. Pitts, do you have any?
Through your worship, biosolids are what's left at the end of the process, and so it's not raw sewage. It's highly degraded. I mean, there are some contaminants still left in it, but generally speaking, most people, and I think North Cowichan was doing this, was selling it to a company who took it and put it on farmers' field and things like that. So it's much more beneficial than when it enters the wastewater plant.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion? Councillor Duncan?
So will this result in additional odors down in the area?
I hope not.
Is this going to be just dumped on the ground, or where does it go?
It won't. Biosolids generally don't smell, so there won't be any additional odors. If it gets really hot, I suppose it could create some problems, but overall they shouldn't create any odors.
It's going into a particular cell at the joint utility lagoons that actually carry biosolids from the rest of it, because we also have to clean biosolids out of our cells, and they are put in that particular cell.
And then we truck it to Victoria.
Ultimately, when we get to that point, yeah. Okay. Without further question or discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
6.2.5 Joint Utilities Board 2017 budget. The council approved the Joint Utilities Board 2017 maintenance and capital budget as attached to the May 15, 2017 agenda.
Okay, seconder. Thank you. Any discussion? This is the overall budget for Joint Utilities Board. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Was there a lot of changes?
No, there weren't really significant. There was some completion of some small capital projects, and I believe the operations are pretty much similar.
Good.
So just, there was no surprises? I know at the meeting there was a talk of it changing by several millions, that the budget kept changing by increasing?
That would likely be more in relationship to the outfall project when that gets going, and there will be increased costs to all users of the system for the cost of the outfall.
Okay, so in this budget there was no surprises?
Not that I remember, no.
Nothing was brought to our attention anyway.
So it was moved and seconded, then all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
6.2.6 for relocation project management team. That North Cowichan staff, with participation by stakeholders, be responsible for the project management of the wastewater outfall relocation project, and report to North Cowichan and Duncan councils, Cowichan tribes, and the Cowichan Valley Regional District as necessary.
Second?
Okay, seconder. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Councillor Horgan. So we move to 7, which is correspondence. We've got item 7.1, which is a letter from the Intercultural Society dated May 8th regarding the Inclusive Community Welcome Banner. The council will select one of these two options. The council approve the use of the city's logo on the Inclusive Community Banner as attached to the May 15th agenda, or the council deny the use of the city's logo on the Inclusive Community Banner.
I'm just going to recuse myself before we go into this, because
Okay.
we have a working relationship with them.
Okay, thank you. With respect to your position at community, yeah. Councillor Jackson.
I move option 1 that we approve the use of the city's logo on the Inclusive Community Banner as attached to the May 15th, 2017 agenda.
Is there a seconder? Seconded, okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
That was good of them to ask, though.
Pardon?
That was good of them to ask, though.
Yeah.
I like their banner, it's very nice.
I'm not going to be able to see it from there, but whatever.
Right.
Okay, item 7.2 is a letter from Leela Hayward of the Duncan Garage requesting the city paint a rainbow with crosswalk for Duncan Street. So that again, this is an option that council select one of the following options: that council receive and file the request, or that council direct staff to prepare a report for a future committee of the whole meeting that outlines costs and maintenance requirements for painting a rainbow crosswalk for council's consideration. And of course, this is in support of the LGBT community and pride. So.
A second option too.
Okay, so there's moved and seconded. Any discussion on this?
This is a bit of a sideline. Like I have no objection to this whatsoever, but I know at some point the Totem Committee was looking at salmon crosswalks, perhaps through you to Councillor Staples. Where did that discussion ever get to?
I don't think it was a matter of funding, I think, is what it came down to, and about when that corner on Canada Avenue or that area is all redone, that was one of the areas that they talked about, the Totem Committee. They talked about it downtown where the totem tours were, but it never got further than discussion. So, but it would be great to bring it back up again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So because it was to where all totem tours are, that all the crosswalks was one of the discussions.
Okay. Councillor Horgan and Councillor Duncan.
Sorry. Yeah, I just thinking back a little bit. We talked about having fish side crosswalks, and we got feet all over the place, and now we want rainbows. There's not going to be much room left on the sidewalks by the time we finish painting everything. It's going to look a bit messy, in my mind.
This is a crosswalk.
But I'm a Grinch. Yeah.
Councillor Duncan, and then take Ms. Robertson.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'd like to see staff not just look into the rainbow one, but also figure out what the cost would be for the salmon one as well. So, yeah, we may already have some of that, but I'm supportive. I don't think it'll be too crowded, and I think it's an appropriate area to have it right down by our park. Yeah.
Ms. Robertson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think that's why we put the recommendation about the report, because staff is going to provide sort of a comprehensive review. Initially, if council recall, junior council had wanted the footprints to be different colors as well. And when staff looked at that, it does become cost prohibitive because you have to change the paint all the time, and it does fade frequently. So I know ones, for example, the crosswalks in Victoria, they're having to redo them quite frequently and can look pretty faded fairly quickly. So in terms of the fish, I think it was cost prohibitive, but what we can do is come back with a report and outline what all costs, pros and cons would be for doing both the rainbow crosswalk and the salmon.
Okay, Councillor Tables.
I think too that the salmon one, we did that test one up on Cairnsmore, remember, all those years ago, and it's still there. And yeah, but that was the only one that we ever did, and I think it was actually council that talked about it more so than the committee, the Totem Committee. But I still think it's a great idea that this is happening on all fronts. We're probably one of the last cities to not have a rainbow crosswalk.
Yeah, there's actually there has been a number of projects in many communities on the island, and certainly often made event. When Ms. Hayward approached me about this and what to do, I did suggest that she write this letter to council requesting the initiative, and that they would likely do some sort of event around it or something to sort of highlight it being done. And I know that's taken place in Campbell River and Courtney and other places like that where they've kind of made some show of it. Now, the crosswalks, there's the engineering standards around them, and then there's the creative ones, which we did up on Cairnsmore, and it's lasted. Mind you, the traffic on Cairnsmore isn't what it was when we initially planned it, because the Eco School is now at Provo, and that makes quite a difference in traffic. Anywhere in the city where we have heavy traffic, the crosswalks do not last long, or any of the lines, to be truthful. They fade very quickly, and that really is just a result of the heavy traffic which we experience in the city on a daily basis. Councillor Jackson.
Just through you, perhaps, to Mr. Pitts. Aren't we changing the kind of paint we're using? It's something that's a plastic-based paint or something, and that presumably it's going to last longer?
Through your worship, that's correct. We're not changing it per se, but we do, when the opportunity arises, we use what's called thermoplast, and it is sort of a plastic-based paint, and they do tend to last a little bit longer. Strangely, it's a fairly new technology, and so it's in my opinion turning out to be as great as they sold it. It's still definitely stronger than regular paint, but for the cost, I think it's most municipalities are a lot of municipalities went all in on it, and then it started to not really work all that well, and so I think people are sort of being a little bit more picky on what they're using. But I know I read all the time. There's all sorts of new products coming out, and that are blending the microbeads and things like that into it. So there's going to be some opportunities, I think, to find something that is a little bit more hardy in terms of taking the traffic toll.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the motion does ask for staff to bring back a report, so we'll get that in due time. Councillor Bell.
I'm just wondering if we could just say, if we could do the timing so it would happen before the parade? Because, so Gay Pride in Victoria is July 9th.
Yeah, I'm not certain when it would be here, but they were going to consider an event. The timing of it would be based on the availability of somebody to actually do the work, or they were going to do it in-house. So that can be coordinated if possible. She did not highlight that in the letter or highlight that to me, so that they'll put on some sort of gathering in the park with it.
So I'm just saying, for us, just to be mindful, we have Duncan, we have our parade, not Gay Pride parade, just our parade.
It doesn't go down Duncan Street though.
But I'm just thinking, because just before that, they actually have prides in different communities, and I know the big one is in Victoria in July. So if we had something like that, it would be easier for them to tie it in.
Yep.
If they're going to do a celebration or something, because we don't even have one.
I'm certain that they're quite aware of it. Again, we'll have to get the report back to find out when and how and what could be done in time.
Just something to think about.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, I call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion's carried. Thank you. So we move to proclamations. We've got a number of them today. So we've got the Public Works Week for May 21st to 27th. So this one's coming just in time, isn't it, Mr. Liss? That Council proclaim May 21st to 27th as a Public Works Week in the City of Duncan. Moved and seconded. Okay. Any discussion on this? I will say I met all the students this morning, a planning student who's going to be working with Miss Junot, and 3 of the Public Works students, 1 returning and 2 new ones, I believe, Lucas, yeah, and they were eager to get at it this morning. So they all looked like they were enthusiastic to be here and work away. So, Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Your Worship. At one point in the past, did we not talk about actually doing something down at, well, it was probably before you got here, Lucas. Did we not actually talk about doing something for Public Works Day?
They are.
Through your worship, yeah. This year, I can't speak to past, but this year we are doing something. We've had 3 schools sign up, and they will be down in the Public Works yard with all the staff from 1 until 2:30, and then we're having some cake and hot dogs.
Great. Excellent. All right, so I'm going to call the question on this motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion's carried. So we go to Access Awareness Day for June 3rd, 2017. The Council proclaimed June 3rd as Access Awareness Day in the City of Duncan.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Jackson.
I just think that we still have a way to go, but we have come a hugely long way in the last 20 years for disability access, but not just for people who are disabled, but mums with small children and strollers and seniors with walkers and canes and people carrying groceries, and it's just so much easier to get around now than it ever has been before, and I hope that we continue making improvements as we go along, so I think this is great.
Okay. Thank you. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And we move to 8.3, which is Falun Dafa Month, May 2017. The Council proclaimed May 2017 as Falun Dafa Month in the City of Duncan.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Jackson, second. Thank you. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Jackson.
We used to do this all the time, and then for some reason it just kind of stopped. But we did this for many years, and Falun Dafa is a very peaceful, spiritual way of living. People who are followers of this spiritual way of living, they don't smoke, they don't drink, they live very healthy lives, and they are very under siege by the government in China, who sees them as somehow a threat, and they are harassed and jailed. And there is a report out there by some very reputable people that, in fact, because they live such healthy lives, that their organs are being harvested. And so it's a terrible thing, and I'm very proud to be able to support this proclamation on their behalf.
Okay. Yes.
The same as the Falun Gong?
Falun Gong, yes, same thing, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to call question. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. So we move to bylaws. We've got the development cost charge amendment, bylaw 3147.01 for adoption. And there's a motion here, and I believe, do we have somebody have a conflict on previous motions? Councillor Bruce. Until it's final approval, yes.
Because, Mr. Mayor, I have commercial property, I have a conflict on this.
That's not actually the conflict, it's because of an application at the city, not the actual fact that you own commercial property.
I have no application in right now at the city, but
Okay.
I'll
Well,
still
there's
declare
active
conflict.
discussions, yes, with the city. So. Okay, so the motion, the council adopt the development cost charges amendment bylaw number 3147.01, a bylaw to reduce the sewage development cost charges.
So moved.
Moved, seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And that was, just to be specific, this was the one that would reduce the development cost charges because of the funding that came from the province in a grant with respect to the sewage outfall project. So federal, UBCM. Thank you. Green Municipal Fund, I guess, is it? UBCM. Right. So they administer, yeah. That's correct. Thank you. Okay, that motion carried. Thank you. So we move to new business. We've got council appointments to CVRD Community Safety Advisory Commission, I believe it is. It says committee here, but I believe it's a commission. So that the following resolution, R7617, from the April 18th council meeting be rescinded. That Councillor Tom Duncan be appointed to as Councillor Horgan's alternate on CVRD Community Safety Advisory Commission. We'll just correct that. And that the council appoint Councillor Tom Duncan as the city's representative on the CVRD Community Safety Advisory Commission with Councillor John Horgan as the alternate.
So moved.
Okay, seconder. Seconder, thank you. Okay, any discussion on this question? This is to rectify inappropriately passed motion. No? I thought we were rescinding one motion.
You're rescinding it only because after the... There we go. Okay. Through your worship, it last time there was, I guess, a misunderstanding of what the motion was. It was actually stated that Councillor Horgan alternate be Councillor Tom Duncan, and then after the fact, Councillor Horgan and Councillor Duncan spoke, and I think the intention was for
Other way around.
to do it
So
the
as
other
it
way
were,
around.
we're
But-
rescinding the previous motion and passing it as was expected.
Yeah.
Councilman,
I just walked in
Staples.
to this, so I didn't know where we were on the agenda, but I'm going to recuse myself from this because I have an appointed seat on this committee
on the
outside of
on the
council.
commission?
On the commission. Yeah. Yeah. It's complicated. I'm not even sure if it is, but I'm just rather...
Okay. so that's moved and seconded. So I'm going to call the question if there's no more discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So we move to reports of mayor and council. And are there any reports from councillors? Councillor Jackson, thank you. Anything else? Okay, I'll try to keep mine brief. Just one note, as you came into the reception area for council chambers, there's the displays from the Duncan Christian School with respect to the Civilizations Project, and the students actually all did several classes, grades 6 and 7 did projects like this, and they educated them amongst themselves and picked the 4 best of the projects to be displayed in City Hall. So I'd encourage you to take a look at them. There's quite a bit of material there, and they were very thoughtful about what they were trying to address in developing their civilization projects. So it's quite inspiring to see some of the things that they take into account. And just out, when this does go out to public, just I would welcome any people from the public to come in and see those projects, because they put a lot of work into them and they're quite creative, and it's also great to have our youth at that age thinking about just how we actually make our way. So it's very good. So since the last council meeting, I did attend, and I believe Councillor Horgan was there, the County Museum exhibit that opened, and it was called Do You Remember Me? It was a digital exhibit, which was in collaboration with I think the University of Victoria and Capilano. Was it, Ms. Councillor Horgan, do you remember? Was it Capilano University? One other. Yeah, I believe it was a student, master's student from one of the universities that produced it. And they had a lot of help, and there was a great group of people at the museum to see it and speak to it. Joe Mayo and others from the community were great to see the history of all of the Asian families that had settled in this valley over the history of the valley and the contribution they made. So that's an ongoing display there, and it's was very well produced. I attended the AGM of the Island Quarter Foundation on the 27th of April, and it was well attended. The first time we public were to attend, and there was actually a very good showing from the public, and by all accounts, people were able to have an open discussion and ask questions, and that was very useful from both perspectives. I've attended a couple now of the overdose prevention site meetings in the community at Regional District with all of the involved parties, Island Health and the medical health officer, not there physically but by phone, and others, to talk about how things were progressing. There has been no direct, they're waiting for contracts to be developed and budgets to be approved and all those things. So we're going to continue to meet. There's another meeting on the 18th as well, and I would imagine that there will be more concrete things to speak about by that point. On the 8th, I attended the Queen of Angels School to welcome the Lieutenant Governor, and that was, of course, the day before the election, so she was able to explain her context, and her services were utilized right away after the election. And maybe in the future as well. So it was nice to have her in the community again, and we shook the hands of all students there. I think there were many, many students. So, and Chief Seymour was also in attendance as well, because he had attended Queen of Angels School in his very first year it opened in 1964, I believe, is what he suggested. He has good memories of the school. I attended was asked to be part of a task force with respect to the tech strategy. So we met on the 10th at CVRD in the morning and just provided some input to the Economic Development Officer with respect to the request for proposals for the strategy study. And so that was very fruitful, and so I believe they will be getting additional information from the proponents that put their proposals forward. And that's about it for me. So, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you very much. On April 29th, the mayor was previously engaged, and so I was lucky to be able to go represent council at the Couch and Lawn Bowling Club for their season opening, and got to throw the first bowl, and I hit the little white ball, which is a miracle.
So are you joining?
No, I don't think so, but they're just a great group of people, and I was very happy to do it. On May the 10th, I attended the CBRD. Corporate Services reports that they're recommending a corporate records officer, very much like the City of Duncan. We're getting into records management at the CBRD, and of course you can imagine with an organization that much bigger than the city, they have far more records, and they're not well managed. They have come to that realization. So right now they do have a tech, but they do need a corporate records officer to provide direction and standards and consistency around the keeping of bylaws, policies and procedures, retention schedule, file management, and so forth. So that'll be coming down the tubes shortly. They are considering dedicating a week of our municipal year to truth and reconciliation, and they feel that June is the best month. The third week of June is Aboriginal Day, and then followed by Canada Day very shortly thereafter. This year, there will not be a whole week, but at least to have the discussion with other municipal governments and see what's to be done. I believe that Councillor Staples has been involved in that project as well. On the May 11th, I was with Councillor Duncan. I was at the Island Savings Centre meeting, and I can report that the National Aboriginal Hockey Tournament, which was held here on the island, we hosted 4 teams of the City of Duncan, and apparently it was wildly successful. People reported that families coming in from all over Canada, that they had spent the whole week here in Duncan and never once had they experienced racism, and they were totally blown away. And the tournament was won by Team Manitoba. A reminder that the Homesteading Fair this year in Cobble Hill will be June the 3rd and the 4th. Everything from planting and crop rotation to how to feed draft horses, and it's free and it promises to be pretty interesting. And the last thing to report is that there is a winner of the Island Savings Centre Sculpture Award. The artist who will be using the leftover wood from the maple tree is David Martinello, and he has a company called Alternative Woodwork, and you can look him up online. He's got a website, and he's very excited to get started, and we're hoping to have this done and a ceremony to unveil it towards the end of the year.
Great, thank you. Councillor Staples.
I'm just going to give a just very brief, just to, 2 things that I noticed. One, I was at I went to some of the games for the hockey tournament. We have a huge hockey-loving family. It was some of the best hockey that I've watched. The last 2 periods of the final game, everyone was standing up for the entire last 2 periods. It was such a good game. And both Team Manitoba boys and girls won the tournament. So I just wanted to throw that out there because it was really exciting. And the other thing is just on the weekend in town, there was a lot of different events happening this past weekend. So town was very full and it was very alive. And just thinking what you said about people's responses from being at that tournament, and just some of the things that have been in the newspaper lately about Duncan, and some of people's perceptions about what's happening in Duncan. One of the things that we have to do too is talk about the things that are really positive that are happening, because both things are happening. And this weekend there was, I went into Coffee on the Moon, and there was a flash mob belly dance happened in Coffee on the Moon. It happened in like 10 different places in the community, and there was people dancing, kids dancing down in the stage, competing, and there was things happening, from Charles Hoey all the way through here and all throughout town. And it was vibrant and alive, and there was families and there was people, and we have to talk about those things as well. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I concur. It was very live music around every corner this on Saturday. It was quite something. Yeah. Okay, so that completes the reports from Mayor and Council. So we go question periods, or any questions of council, from staff on anything with respect to the agenda? Nothing, okay, so we move to resolve to go into closed meeting, and the council, the meeting for the closed, be closed to the public under the following section of the Community Charter, Section 91C, Labor Relations or Other Employee Relations. And a motion, please. Moved, seconder. Thank you. Any discussion on this? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Nothing to rise and report, and a motion to adjourn will come after we've completed our closed session. So we'll just take a 5-minute recess and return for the closed session.